So, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the Sunset Safari. We are here on Djuma Game Reserve right at the Djuma Waterhole. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Janie, and this afternoon I've got WildEarth on camera with me. And on the other vehicle we have Scott and Andrew making their way towards Arethusa just to see what they can find. And as always, a big heads up to Nikki and Kirsty in FC, and our great Eugene and Alex on the tech crew side. So guys, I know that a lot of you will have been watching the Djuma cam, and you might have seen that saddle-billed stork catch an enormous tilapia and manage to swallow it. So we thought we'd rush here and just see if there was any more action, but they still seem to be fishing and moving around. And there he is. Can't see from this distance if it's the male or the female. And unfortunately I arrived just after the bird had actually swallowed the fish, so I didn't see which one it was. There are two of them here. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is a live safari. So what you're seeing right now on your screens is happening right here on Djuma Reserve in the Sabi Sands. And if you do happen to miss the safaris, or you want something else to keep yourself entertained, you can actually watch a live camera that is set up here at the Djuma Waterhole. And whenever we aren't doing our live safaris, you can sit and just monitor the action that's happening at this dam. So very, very cool. There's always a little bit of excitement in this, something happening at any one point in time at this dam. And for those of you who might have missed it, there was a spectacular moment with Scott and the saddle-billed storks that had caught a massive tilapia, was struggling to swallow it, and then it was swooped in and snatched by a fish eagle who then dropped it, and they all lost the fish completely. So there's always something happening at the dam. So if you're not joining us for the live safaris, or you're missing us and you want some African action, tune into the live cameras that are up 24 hours a day. And we've also got a nice herd of buffalo here. So for those of you who might have missed the sunrise safari this morning, Scott was with an enormous breeding herd of buffalo, somewhere well over the 400 in number. So these guys are sort of potentially tailing the herd, but it is just a group of males that have chosen to spend a slightly warmer afternoon chilling out in the mud and just cooling down. So luckily it has heated up from this morning's very chilly start. I was also out driving around and tracking this morning, and I was really feeling the cold. It was 7 degrees this morning. It's now 22 degrees, which is 71 degrees Fahrenheit. So nice and warm, still with a bit of a nip in the wind. I know that the rest of the country is feeling very, very cold. So we're just catching the tail end of that cold front passing through. But still a lovely afternoon, and a very peaceful afternoon setting. There is one buffalo here with a particularly painful looking leg. I know that some of the regular viewers are familiar with him, and he definitely seems to be struggling to put weight. It looks to me that his right front leg is injured, but I have heard talk about a back leg being injured as well. So it is probably the same buffalo, and he definitely seems to be struggling. Here he is. You can see he's not really resting much weight on that front leg at all. And it is exciting times, especially with the big buffalo herd moving through. It's very, very common for lions to follow behind a buffalo herd, just looking for an opening. And a vulnerable individual like this is definitely a potential option for a hungry pride of lions. I'm not sure how he would have injured it. Possibly simply slipping over in the mud, getting caught and just spraining something, or maybe in a collision with another male. It's impossible to really tell. Just while I am with these buffalo, this afternoon I was doing a little bit of reading, because I was wondering, yesterday morning when I was with the breeding herd, they were going completely contrary to my predictions as to where they were going to go. And this morning when Scott had them, they'd almost made their way completely opposite to the direction they were going in. And so I was looking up a little bit about buffalo movements and how it's determined, just because I was interested in how they choose where they go. Because obviously they have to make sure that they don't visit the grazing grounds too regularly, because they have to give the grass a chance to recover. And I read a really, really interesting paper on a theory that a researcher put forward, that when it's time for buffalo to get up and move, when they've been lying down and ruminating, and to choose a direction that they're going in, the females will get up and sort of mull around a little bit and then lie down again, and the majority of them will lie facing a certain direction, and then the herd will get up and move in that direction. So this researcher put forward a theory that it's actually a democratic decision that the buffalo take. Interesting. I've never realized that before. I've certainly never observed it, but very, very interesting. And there is one guy that is off to the left, just having a serious scratch. If we can maybe have a look at him, wildebeest. He's just ahead there. He's been scratching his side, and he's now actually scratching his forehead on what is obviously a very well-worn rubbing post. Here we go. So a great way to remove ticks and parasites and just sort out all those itchy places on your body. Go and lie in the mud. And for those of you who were watching when James went on his catfish catching adventure, you will have seen how incredibly thick and sticky this mud is, and it is a great way to trap the various parasites and then scratch them off on rubbing posts like this, which is exactly what this buffalo bull is doing. If you guys are joining us for the first time, this is an interactive experience, and you can ask us questions or pass on your thoughts or comments to us, and you can do that on Twitter using #SafariLive, or you can email them through on questions@wildearth.tv, and please send stuff through. We always welcome questions, and it gives us plenty to think about. So guys, I'm sure you're all wondering what Scott has been up to. I know that he was slowly making his way towards Arethusa, which is vaguely in the direction that the wild dogs were in this morning, but he's just going to head across there and see what updates they have for him on that side. So I'm sure you'd like to catch up and see what he's doing, and I will get back to you in a little bit later.
Hello everyone, and welcome on board with myself, Scott, and I'm teamed up with Andrew this afternoon. We've just crossed into Arethusa and have seen a lot of vehicle tracks from where the wild dog were followed and seen this morning. Sadly, they have continued south away from us back towards their den sites. So we're not going to be seeing them this afternoon, but there's a chance we could bump into Shadow and her cub Sandile, 2 leopards, and that's why I'm specifically working this area we're in now in the hope that we may find some tracks or signs of them. Failing that, we will continue around and just explore some different parts of Arethusa that we don't get to that often. Djuma is where we are centrally based, so we typically spend more time there. It's just a proximity thing, I guess, and Arethusa is further away, and especially the western side of Arethusa. But I've decided that we need to mix up the scenery a little bit and also increase our likelihood of bumping into the Anderson male leopard, who hangs around on the western and southern parts of Arethusa. So the only way we're going to get to see more of him is if we spend time there, and that is the plan for this afternoon. As you've seen with Jamie, it is a wonderful winter's afternoon. We've got some clouds in the sky which make for pretty scenery, and it's nice and cool, so it's not a hot afternoon despite it being very sunny. There you can go, Andrew's showing you some of the pretty clouds on the horizon. We don't have to worry about rain from them, and to be honest, if it did rain, it would be a big surprise and a very welcome surprise, but it is unlikely that it will happen during the winter months. Closer to October, there may be a few lighter downpours, but October, November, we will start getting our first decent rains. Well, we've just arrived at Knobthorne Clearings, which is where we hold some of our sporting events when we play touch rugby against one another. And we've had a few visitors while we've been playing touch rugby, walking past us, wildebeest, elephant bulls. No predators yet, but this is our field. And aren't we so fortunate to be able to play around in the middle of this incredible wilderness. I must say I am jealous to hear that some of you got to see the saddle-billed stork successfully swallowing quite a large tilapia. I believe it's quite similar to the size of the one that it caught the other day, but then was interrupted by a greedy fish eagle who tried to steal it. So some of you got to see that on the Djuma live cam just before the show went live this afternoon. And I wonder how many more it's going to get to feed on before that waterhole dries up, or as it continues to dry up, because it's just going to get easier and easier for the saddle-billed stork. So good news for the fish hunters. Not such good news for the fish though. Well, speaking of eating things and the saddle-billed stork eating the tilapia, one of our viewers, Spusiso, has just sent through a comment saying that he got to dine on some mapani worms as he went to go and stay in a nature reserve over the weekend. And he says they were delicious. They are quite tasty if they are prepared well. I agree with you. I'm glad you enjoyed them, Spu. And for those of you who don't know mapani worms, it's a worm about this large, about as thick as your finger, that feeds predominantly on the mapani tree, which we don't get in this area. And Spusiso was wondering if we do get the mapani worms here. No, because there's no mapani trees. Further north of us, not too far away though, the mapanis do start. So we sadly don't have that delicacy that you are so lucky to try and taste. But it is a very popular dish amongst the local people of the Mapani fault areas. And glad you got out into the bush, Spusiso. I hope you had a good time. Come on, animals. Where are you hiding? We will find you. So don't make it difficult for us. We did drive past some animals earlier, and I must say I'm fairly certain it was the zebra stallions that were responsible for kicking that foal and breaking its leg a few days ago. So they're still around on the Djuma property. And there's also quite a few zebra around as well. So I think they're still causing trouble with the harems, the stallions with their harems of ladies. And let's hope you don't see any more wounded baby foals around, because those 3 or 4 stallions certainly are running around, lifting their heads up high, trying to create havoc. I suppose you can't blame them, they just want to start a family of their own. But the way they go about it is quite brutal. And for those of you who are not too clued in on what I'm talking about, basically about 5 or 6 days ago, James responded to, he was out on a tracking team, responded to some zebras alarm calling, and he got there only to find it was zebras attacking other zebras, and they were kicking a foal, broke its leg. It's not uncommon for zebras to do this, but it's certainly not something we like to see. Okay. Now I'm going to be cautious of this individual on the right. He's got a gaping wound on the right hand side of his, sorry Andrew, of his horn. It doesn't look to be infected at the moment, but look at the size of that hole out of his boss. Well, that would have been caused from horn borer moth. His eye also doesn't look too clever, his left eye. Looks like that whole side of his body's taken a bit of a hammering over the years. What is going on with that left eye of yours? Are you winking at us, or? It did appear to be open earlier. No, surely it's too long for a wink. That must be something a bit more serious. Well, I'm fairly certain he did have it open earlier. We'll keep a close eye on him. And isn't it great to see these oxpeckers also jumping on board, doing their business, helping glean the parasites off him. For those of you who weren't on the sunrise safari, we got to see a yellow-billed oxpecker, which was great. It's the first one I've managed to show you, and I don't think between all the presenters we have had many sightings of them since November. So that was a new one for the bird list for a lot of you. Oh no, yeah, that left eye isn't looking too clever. He did open it now, but it looks like it's quite a mess in there. I can't tell exactly what's going on, but it doesn't look to be the right color. It's gone white and opaque, so not in the best nick, old boy. Now these three are all actually a little bit worse for wear. Here comes Owen, look at him, he's hobbling along. And that what we see happening there is the end process of a very, very efficient digestive system. It would have passed through not one, not two or three, but 4 different chambers in their stomach, or 4 different stomach chambers, regurgitated many times, and slowly now it can get recycled back into the ecosystem. But that tail of his looks like it's also could tell a few stories, and who knows how many lions have been on the back of that buffalo in its lifetime. Old wrinkly face, tattered ears. Got a lot of respect for these animals. They can look quite lethargic and docile, but don't be fooled. If it wanted to, it would move at incredible speeds, faster than any human on earth, and with incredible power. And with age, their temper tends to shorten, and that's why you don't want to come across these guys, especially on foot. They can be a little dust devil in the background. Well, that didn't last too long. Oh no, it's trying its best. There we go again. Well done, Andrew. I think we might be in luck. These old boys are heading down to the waterhole. So we're just going to reposition and see what they do next. Well, I think they may even go in for a complete wallow if we're lucky, and cover their coats with mud. This is called red diamond arethusa, and it has dried up considerably compared to the rainy months over summer. And Tim is wondering, how will fish be reintroduced into the waterholes if they do dry up? Is it us that comes and restocks the dams with fish? No, it's not. It just happens naturally, and because the rains can be quite strong and overflow from larger dams that have held fish and held water during the dry months, those fish and eggs will be transported by the flowing rivers from dam to dam. And it's not every year that the waterholes will dry up completely. This has been an exceptionally dry year. Oh, that water looks good. Wouldn't like to have an oxpecker digging in my ear when I quenched my thirst though, so you can't blame him for wagging his ear. Well, you may have noticed the one bull buffalo taking a pee earlier, and Rosie would like to know, why do they whittle in circles, was the exact term. And that's a good question, Rosie. I don't have a clue why they jiggle around like that as they urinate. It's no different to a cow though, and I guess that's just to stimulate the urination process. If you don't know what we're talking about, we can try and show you quickly. We've got a great low angle here, and who knows why they do that? I certainly don't. If anybody does know the answer to that, I would be more than happy for you to send through your thoughts as to why exactly they do that, but I think it's just emulating a pump of sorts. We've just been sent through a good point from Stefan. He's in the final control room watching the show, and he pointed out that it's useful when tracking buffalo that you can tell it's a male that's had a pee because of that sprayed effect from the jiggling, whereas the females will be more of a emptying out a jug onto the ground kind of effect. So that's a good point. Now yesterday James was wallowing around a similar waterhole, not the same one, hoping to try and wrangle a catfish. And Dennis noticed that he sunk very deep into the mud, and what prevents the animals from doing that? Well, I guess a combination of things. A lot of them have got their weight spread out over 4 limbs, not just 2. So that will be a big one. And also, there's nothing stopping buffalo and impala also getting stuck in these wallows. It does happen as it dries up more and more, and it's not uncommon to see animals, be it buffalo, elephants, impala, it could happen to just about anything, could get stuck in the mud as they try and get to the water's edge. But the fact that a lot of the animals are moving around on 4 limbs will make it a lot easier to move through this thick, sludgy environments. Now Andrew spotted some crested francolin, who have also decided to come down to Red Dam for a drink. And we seldom see them out in the open like this. They're often running off through thick grass. Very pretty little birds. As well as another little bird called a 3-banded plover. This afternoon Jamie and Kirsty were sitting on the veranda at the camp where we stay here at Djuma, and I heard a crested francolin quack, 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 flying in distress towards them, and they looked up and saw an African goshawk right on its tail feathers, but then the francolin managed to fly underneath a kind of deck, and the raptor pulled out at the last moment. So the francolin escaped within a few inches of its life, and Jamie and Kirsty were provided with some awesome entertainment right from the veranda. And it was also one of these crested francolin that was being pursued. Okay folks, well, while we've been sitting here enjoying these old boys, Jamie's been hard at work on foot tracking down dangerous animals, and she would like to update you on her tracking, so we will see you all a little bit later.
So guys, welcome back, and as you can see, we have found ourselves nicely ensconced in this drainage line. And the reason I came tearing in here like a mad person was because I heard some inyalas just off here barking frantically, and they sounded pretty panicked, so immediately my thoughts jumped to either lion or leopard, or unlikely, but even potentially cheetah or wild dog, something predator based. So I came rushing in here and jumped off and went wandering around off into that area. And unfortunately, I haven't had any luck. All that I managed to track was the inyala that had barked, and he came off from that direction. I can't see any tracks of leopard or lion. I did blunder about for a while, just looking and hoping that something would alert me to its presence, but so far no luck. Unfortunately, it is a very, very thick block, so I haven't had any opportunities to really look deeper into that drainage line. So my plan for now is to loop around, see if maybe there are tracks somewhere entering this drainage line, because then at least I know what what I'm looking for and what we're dealing with, if it is anything. It could be that the Inyala just got a surprise, something spooked it, maybe some birds flew out of the grass and it just barked in alarm. Or maybe even it just got wind of a lion that had scent marked in the area and just panicked a little bit. So not really sure. When I did flush him out, he didn't look too worried and was only really paying attention to me and not to his surroundings. So we're going to do a loop, see what we can find. If you'll bear with me for 1 second, I just want to get hold of James on the radio and let him know where I am. Yeah, James, sorry, Jamie's standing by. I'm just checking along Gowrie cut line now. Heard some alarm calls off in the drainage line, but no luck here. Scott has gone to Arethusa as far as I know. Okay, so now that I've got myself into this predicament, I've got to get myself out again. And we're going to slowly do a little bit of a U-turn around and see what we can find. Bear with me as we struggle our way out of here. I will turn around as soon as possible. I've just placed him in a thorn tree. You're right. Yeah. Sorry. It is a really beautiful drainage line. I think I'm in the Mulwati River. I think. I'm still learning the drainage lines. And now we've got to make our way out. Very pretty setting, so I'm not regretting my decision to come wandering around in here. You also start to see tree species in drainage lines that you don't encounter very much in the more open areas and on the crests of hills. Trees like tambuti trees, which I will find in a moment. So, when I mention tambuti trees, this is a particular example off to my left.
Which one?
This one here is fine. They're both tambutis. And this is an example of a tambuti tree. And tambuti trees are very, very, very toxic. So to humans, just a little bit of the milky latex that they have inside their branches or their leaves can kill you in large doses, and even cooking on the firewood of a tambuti tree can make you very, very sick. So just cooking on it, sniffing the smoke gives you very upset stomach, lots of vomiting, and if you are in any kind of weakened condition, it can cause death. So quite a dangerous tree, but not to all animals. So elephants will eat it, porcupines will have a go at the roots, and I know that in some areas black rhinos also really like them. And apparently they're also wonderful to sleep under. So, and that's because for some reason the mosquitoes really don't like to swarm around those trees. So it makes for a nice place to camp as long as you don't gather your firewood from directly underneath them. So what I will do quickly, while I have an opportunity, is to just go and see if I can reach one of the leaves and grab it, and I will show you something, what I mean when I'm talking about the latex on them. This tree is a little bit dry. I can find a nice leaf to demonstrate my point. This will sort of do. If I were Brent or Scott, I'm sure I could jump up and reach a little bit higher, but I'm not. So we'll have to make do with this. And I must just remember not to touch my eye afterwards. Is this okay here? Will you be able to?
That's fine.
Okay. So in here.
Take this a little bit back.
Cool. So you can sort of just see the milky white latex that I was telling you about. And that is what is so incredibly toxic about this tree. Definitely not, I don't want to touch it and then touch my eye or put my fingers in my mouth or near my face. So I've just got to bear that in mind after I've done this. But it is also, some local people have suggested using it for toothache. So they say if you get a little bit of this latex, put it on your finger and dab a sore gum, it might help to relieve the pain of a toothache. And I do know somebody who tried it. He said it didn't work, it just made the pain slightly more excruciating and he ended up losing the tooth anyway. So definitely wouldn't advise using this as an alternative to practiced dental medicine, but just a very interesting tree and one that's useful to know. And always very useful to remember that if you are collecting wood in a drainage line like this, just be aware that there are lots of tamboutis. They do favor this kind of area, and you should be very careful of what you're picking up. Okay, so now we've had a little bit of a tree lesson. Ooh, it looks like some clouds are blowing in. The cold front is coming. So now we've had a bit of a tree lesson. Let's start making our way out of here. Which is a pity really, because I really like driving along drainage lines. There's always something to see. Going to get through these scratchy branches. And over that incredibly large stump, which I failed to navigate around. Okay. So now we are back on the road and I'm making my way in the direction of where that large breeding herd of buffalo was last seen by Scott this morning. And I know that they have crossed out of our boundary, or at least I believe they have, unless they've changed direction. However, as I mentioned before, there is a chance that there might be some lions wandering around, sort of following behind that herd just to see if they could take a chance. And I know that John from California was wondering if we have any updates on either the Birmingham boys or the Matimba males. So for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, I'm talking about coalitions of male lions. The Birmingham boys number, there are 5 of them in number. The Matimba males are slightly older, slightly larger, but there's only 2 of them that are in this area, or generally seen in this area. And John, I haven't heard anything. I know that the guides were looking for the Birmingham boys this morning. I'm not sure if they found them. I can double check on the radio a little bit later. But if they did, it wasn't on our property. It was probably still on Biffle's Hook to the north of us. And as for the Matimba males, I actually haven't heard much from them about them in quite a while. But we did have audio of lions calling this morning, sort of just south of our boundary, so towards Twin Dams area, just south there in that property. So that could well have been them. They might still be hanging out with the Styx Pride. And the Nkuhumas were last seen to the east of us, but we are hoping that they are making their way back in this general direction. With a herd of 400 buffalo wandering through, it's a meals on wheels for the lions, even if it is a bit of a risky one. So there's a chance they are moving around here. And I promise you, John, I will let you know as soon as I do. The Nyala that were barking have disappeared completely. There was just one lone male impala who was with them, who is now dashing across in front of us. And when we first saw him, we actually stopped to look at this group of Inyala that was with him, because it is fairly unusual to see a male impala on his own like this. Sorry, it's straight into the sun, so I'm not going to stick around with him too long. But he did seem to be suffering from something of an identity crisis. I'm just going to listen to the Game Drive channel for a second, just to see if they've got any updates on those lions. Ah, that's interesting. Somebody else has picked up on alarm calls fairly close to where we are. So I wonder what's happening there. I didn't hear anything from my side, but one of the guides is following up on that. So maybe it is something interesting. I'm actually going to stop and listen as well, because he says that the squirrels are starting to shout too. And I can't hear anything from my side. Might be further south. I caught the last part. Can you just confirm the location of those alarm calls? Okay, copy that, thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna turn around and make my way back to that area. Copy that, thanks James. Okay guys, so we are going to turn around and just go and see what's happening. I'm starting to catch the faint calls of the Inyala. Probably you won't be able to hear them, they're very, very faint. But I'm going to make my way there, and there's actually 2 other people who are going to be following up as well. So let's go see what we can find. And the buffalo herds have bought the flies. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of speed on here and see if we can get to the area while the Nyala are still alarm calling, just to give us a general direction. So I wonder, I think maybe that Nyala did pick up on the alarm calls of the Nyala further away that I didn't hear and was barking in response. And you'll often see that with really serious alarm calls. One animal will start and the rest will follow before they've even realized what they're barking at. We are driving along at not quite breakneck speeds, but something, yeah, okay. While we're driving along a little bit faster than normal, and we've been chatting a little bit about that Tambuti tree, we've had a couple of questions from the viewers wondering a little bit about the safety hazards that we put ourselves through on a day-to-day basis to bring you your entertainment. And Sibu Siso would like to know if we carry first aid kits or medical kits in case something happens on the vehicles. And we do indeed. We have a first aid kit on board with us at all times. And I also always carry my own personal one, just because, especially if something happens when you're walking in the bush, I always like to make sure I know what I've got in my pack. Hello, Nyala. You seem very relaxed. I'm just going to stop here and listen for a moment. And while I do that, I'll just also cover BJ's question. And BJ, welcome to the Sunset Safari. You would like to know if the fact that I touched that Tambuti and have now touched the various parts of the Jeep, if there's any risk of contamination, or if I touch my eyes, if it's going to cause any damage. It's highly unlikely. It's very, very low doses if it does come into contact, and I'd made sure that I didn't at any point touch the latex itself. I would still avoid touching my eyes until I've washed my hands, just because I don't feel like having burning, itchy eyes.
Squirrel.
There we go, there's a squirrel shouting. I'm just going to listen for a moment. Okay. Negative, I missed that. What was the message? Copy that, thanks. Okay guys, we have the answer to our alarm calls. So, I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'm going to leave it for you to guess. far from where it is. Exciting stuff, guys. James, if I can confirm, it's the main dam. The dam outside Boyatella. Copy that, thanks. North of Umgubu Road. Copy that, thank you. Aha. Okay, let's make our way in and see who we've got. So, not the direction that my alarm calls were coming from, which is interesting, but maybe the alarm calls I picked up on were in response to this particular animal, and the other Inyala were Thanks, guys. Can I go? Shop, shop. Thank you. Hi, guys. There we go. We're going to get a quick visual. She is moving through a very, very thick block. She's actually changing direction now. So I'm going to try to stay with her. Hello, beautiful. Okay, she is going to walk out in front of me, so I'm going to just stop here. I know that she's hidden behind some sticks. And awesomely exciting afternoon for me. My very first time seeing this particular leopard. And I believe that this is Karula. Awesome stuff. Very, very exciting. And she's also, something's attracted her attention. And I can see why she is known as the Queen of Djuma. She is truly beautifully proportioned, absolutely stunning leopard. And we are potentially going to have a tricky time following her down into the drainage line if she does decide to go that way. But I will stay with her for as long as possible. She is going to go down there. And hopefully back out onto the road soon. I've just stopped here just because I just want to determine a direction before I start bashing through going the wrong way. Is that okay? Thank you. Just see that wonderful tip of her tail. She is quite intensely focused on something. She might have picked up some antelope or something moving through the drainage line. And what an exciting afternoon. I had a bit of a leopard feeling earlier, especially when I heard those alarm calls, but I didn't want to get my hopes up too high. But there we go. And that's thanks to the brilliant work of the other Djuma guides. And get to the other side of these bushes. What a gorgeous girl. Now, as far as I know, this is Shadow's mother. And if you guys do have information for me, I don't know how old she is, but I believe she is Shadow's mother. In which case, I have been privileged enough to see in the last few days 3 generations worth of leopard, all related to each other. So a couple of days ago I had Shadow and Sindile, her cub, and now I have Shadow's mother Karula. I'm going to just shuffle around to see what I can do. Just looking at her now, I know that a lot of people got to see or got to hear about Karula mating with Tingana a couple of months ago. And both Deb and Julia are wondering if I think she might be pregnant or questioning whether she is or isn't. And my answer to that is, if she is, it might be too early to tell. And the only reason I'm saying that is because she was seen when I first started working here, before I'd even started taking WildEarth drives. She was seen mating with an unknown male up in Buffelshoek, and that was only about 2 weeks ago. So if she is pregnant from that encounter, it is a little bit too soon to tell. But potentially her mating with Tingana was unsuccessful. I will shift forward a little bit so we can get a slightly better view. Thank you, Georgianne in Illinois, and welcome to the Sunset Safari. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. And Georgianne is telling me that Karula is 11 years old. So thank you for that information. My first time seeing her, so it is really exciting. And what a truly gorgeous leopard she is. I have just noticed that she has got an injury there. She's got quite a deep cut on her back right leg, and there's also a cut on her neck. And they don't seem to be hampering her too seriously. She's not limping in any way that I've noticed, so she's still moving smoothly. I'm actually going to just wait for a second, because she does appear to be very intently focused on something, and I don't want to disturb her too much. But those injuries don't look too serious. There's a couple of ways that she might have got them. One of the most likely causes was when she was hunting, so she might have killed something that fought back quite strongly, or potentially by another leopard, although I think it would be unlikely. I think it's more likely that it was an injury gained during hunting. If she was injured by another leopard, it would probably be... It does seem unlikely to me, because females, although they do have a territory, generally their confrontations, if they meet each other along territorial lines, are not too serious. They don't often come to physical blows. They usually are it's more about sizing each other up and then moving off in different directions. And there is no reason for her to be attacked by a male unless he got overly aggressive during the mating process, which again, there is a lot of aggression in the mating process between leopards and lions, but not to the point that it causes injuries like this. So I think most likely it's sustained when catching prey. She is on the move again, so I'm going to... Oh no, she's going to walk here. Thank you, girl. So fear not, animals are very resilient, and these, although they look horrible, I think that these are fairly superficial injuries. She's not favoring that leg at all, so she's fine. It's not affecting her movement, and I think that she'll heal up just fine. I'm so excited. This is the first time I've seen her. So guys, just to keep you in the loop, there are other vehicles here, and we have had a very, very good visual of her. She was obliging enough to come right past us, and the guides who found her were actually kind enough to let me go ahead of them in terms of staying with her. So as I follow along, I might switch around with the other vehicles just to let them have a turn to have a proper look at her, especially since they did find her. Definitely toing and froing. I'm not not sure what she's after. She might be looking for something to eat, something to hunt and kill. She's just deciding where she wants to go. So it is only fair that I let the other vehicles have their time with her. If they do come towards us, or if she starts to move off, I will stay with her for as long as possible. But she is moving towards them, and I'm not going to go bashing my way in there. But I do want to reposition and just find a nice point that we can view her from without losing touch with her. So for now, I'm going to send you back to Scott, and I will be back with you a little bit later, hopefully still with Karula.
Welcome back, everyone, and I've missed you. We've been in some low-lying areas with no signal, but so happy to hear that you got to see Karula. I'm really interested to see how bad this gash is on her leg, and I wonder what caused it. But anyway, you guys got lucky and got to see that. Andrew and myself have been enjoying some beautiful scenery here at Arethusa. This is the Arethusa waterhole, and now you can see the lodge coming into picture. What a beautiful view the guests here get to have every morning when they wake up. And they also have dinner right here, and hear the hippos calling. It's certainly not a bad spot to have your lodge situated. At the moment there's just a few hippo floating around and a few birds, but we're going to continue and see what else we can find. So we're not going to be able to see either Shadow, Sindile or Tingana this afternoon, and the reason for that is that they are all together on an impala kill. In all likelihood, an impala that Shadow killed, and then Tingana stumbled upon her cub Sindile she would have brought back to the kill, and it's sadly on a property where we cannot go, so that rules them out of the equation. But good to know that they are all one happy family together having a feast, and the fact that all three of them are there together means that impala will be finished up quite quickly, and then they'll be on the move again, hopefully back into an area where we can see them. Chatting about some leopards that we may not see, it's important to mention that there still is a chance that we could see the Anderson male. He's also been known as, or nicknamed, the Ghost by some guides because he's so tricky to track down. And Georgianne, thanks very much for your wishes to help us find the Ghost this afternoon. It certainly will require a lot of luck. And John in California has also sent through an interesting comment, and he's mentioned that he's heard the Anderson male has made buffalo kills before. He's sniped young buffaloes from breeding herds, and that's certainly not unlikely, because I even mentioned this morning when we were following a large herd of buffalo, big male leopards will trail large herds, and they can be so secretive that they can snipe in, catch a young buffalo without the herd really knowing. They do run a risk because buffalo will trample them and try and gore them if they get a hold of them. I've once seen a male leopard perched up on a tiny little branch. It was barely big enough to carry its weight, and it probably had him about 2 meters off the ground with about 300 buffalo around him, and there was just one leopard perched on this little branch above all of them. He luckily didn't get dislodged from that branch, otherwise it would have been the end of that, and that would be something incredible to see. and film and share with all of you, because it is very risky business. But like I've said, leopards know how well they can camouflage and how well they can dissolve into their surroundings. And big males will even try and take down buffalo, albeit the small ones, it's still in amongst a lot of adults. So certainly not unlikely, John, and thanks for sending through that update, that we know for a fact that the Anderson male has done that in the past, because I didn't know that about him. So thanks very much. Bird here that I haven't shown you for quite some time, and Andrew's busy going for it. There we go. Hello there. This is a little emerald spotted wood dove. You may notice two small emerald windows on its wing. They glisten beautifully in the sunlight. You can't quite see that happening now, but they're such pretty little doves. There's a fork-tailed drongo or two and a starling calling in the background. And I know a lot of you have got your bird lists going, so trying our best wherever we can to keep adding new species onto them for you. There's the starling that's also been calling. Oh no, hang on, that's not a starling. What is that? I'm not sure what that bird is. Okay, we need to send you back to Karula in a rush. I wish I was coming. See you later.
Quick. So guys, as you can see, we are still with this gorgeous female leopard, Karula, and she has moved out into a nice open patch for us, so we wanted to get you across as quickly as possible just to show her out in the open. You can see how incredibly relaxed she is in our presence. She's going to walk right in front of the car. Awesome stuff. She's just done a little bit of urine spraying just to scent mark her area. And if her mating with that mystery male was unsuccessful, she could also be advertising to other males in this area, maybe Mvula or Tingana, that she is still available. And female leopards, for those of you who might be joining us and unfamiliar with their practices, they will mate with several males at a time in the area, just so that those males, when she does have cubs, think that they are the father of those cubs. They are less likely to kill them. That's interesting. Into a dip. She's chopping and changing direction all the time. across into this thick patch. I'm just going to crash my way. I might not need to. She keeps going left. There she goes, perfectly comfortable with the car. And I'm going to need to shift. Sorry guys. So I hear that Scott has an update about Shadow, Sindile and Tingana, and that they were all seen together in Hoffman's on an impala kill. So that's exciting news from that side. At least we know where those two are. I'm just going to shift out of the way of the other guide so that he can have a chance to come in. So I'll move forward slightly. So that he can have a chance to come in. So I'll move forward slightly. So she's just stopping and sniffing the various scents. Now, I did track a male leopard in this area very recently, so there is definitely one large. Okay, guys, it is getting very, very thick. So still got her. Unfortunately, we can't turn on now without potentially messing this up. She's much more upright now than she was. So I'm a little bit reluctant to turn on now and follow her into that block. I'm not too sure exactly where she's gone. just waiting to hear if we... Oh, there she is. I've got her. She is still stalking. So guys, we do apologize if any of you had some streaming issues, and the reason that we are sitting very still and peering between these thick branches, and you can just see just off to the right of the center of your screen, you can see an ear moving, and she has been stalking through this thicket. She's picked up on something, and she is moving in a sort of a stop-start fashion, very slowly creeping up in the typical stealthy way that leopards employ when they are hunting. I have been very reluctant to switch on the vehicle at this point, just because I was worried, or I am worried, about interrupting a hunt and depriving her of a potential kill opportunity. So although she is disappearing off, what I really want to do is just sit and listen, because if she does make a successful kill, we will hear it almost immediately. And I know that we really don't want to lose her, but I also don't want to disturb any of her senses. I could start the vehicle and either startle her or the prey item, the prey animal. So I just really don't want to have any impact on her. So us crashing through this bush, and it is a very thick block, but us crashing through there would make life very difficult for her. So while we're sitting here, we had that question from Sarah, and I sort of interrupted in the middle of what I was answering just because I was trying to keep an eye on what she was doing, and I'm still trying to keep a lookout for where she's gone. Now Sarah wanted to know what would happen if an adult daughter met her mother out in the wild. So a daughter that's moved away from her mother, is independent, and has gone and established her own territory. Do they fight, or will they greet each other with social grooming in the same way that lions do when they come back together again? And there are recorded cases of mothers and daughters fighting on the odd occasion, but it is very rare. And usually what they'll do is they will come into the territory, or meet each other on territorial boundaries, sort of sniff each other. They won't be overly friendly, and then they'll move off in different directions. But it's less likely that they will come into physical contact when it is a mother and a daughter. But what they have shown is that when a daughter is starting to gain independence, what the mother will do to make her life a little bit easier is to just shift her territorial boundaries slightly and allow the daughter to use a portion of her territory in the beginning. So they often have little overlapping territorial boundaries when that female is first gaining independence, which is why you find with leopards the females in the area are usually related in some way or another, whereas with the males they disperse far further afield, because obviously they don't want to be sharing their genetics with any other family members, so they'll disperse off further and find their own territories. Although interestingly, apparently the mothers are a lot more tolerant of their grown-up sons than they are of their grown-up daughters, and female leopards will become independent faster than the male leopards, and the adult females will be more likely to help out with the young males and share their kills. So I am still listening. I haven't heard any alarm calls yet or any barking, so that does suggest to me that her hunt is potentially still on the go, because if whatever she was hunting has spotted her, we would have heard it by now. It would alarm call, no matter what it is. Heard any sounds of raven. I'm just going to give it another minute or two, just sitting in silence, and then we're going to try and loop around our bush in front to risk disturbing her hunt. So we will have to pull out and go around on the road and see if we can locate her again.
I couldn't resist following that trail for a short while, but to track properly you would do it on foot, and that's sadly not an option for us this afternoon, so we're just going to continue on now and move out this area and see what else we can find. Been driving so slowly all afternoon, I thought it was time to increase the blood flow before Andrew falls asleep on the back here and all of you fall asleep at home or at work or wherever you may be watching. For those of you who haven't been tuned into the show for a few days, they're doing some major works on the Arethusa airstrip. They're re-tarmacking it, so that's what all this is about. But we will be through it in a moment, and we are heading back towards Djuma slowly. Oh, not there.
I think over there.
That one's to a quarry. This is the one we need. So, I wonder what the last little section of the Sunrise Drive is going to bring. I hope Jamie does get lucky and relocates in Karula. It would be great for you to spend some more time with her, and if she does get successful with the kill, that would also be great, I guess, especially because she has that wound on her leg. So a good meal will certainly help in the recovery process there. I'm thinking of possibly heading back towards the hyena den sites to see if we don't get any luck there. The little black cub hasn't been seen for quite some time now. I think the last time that it was seen was on Monday last week with James. I know we did try our luck there this morning and it wasn't active, but this evening it may be different, so that's my plan. I'll probably be there in about 10 or 15 minutes, depending on what we bump into along the way. Following tracks is a tricky business. Earlier we were discussing the different ways of trying to determine how fresh tracks may be. And now Judith from upstate New York is interested to know, what would you do if an animal heads into an area where the ground is very hard and it doesn't leave or hardly leaves any sign that it's moved there? Well, I guess that's when the real good trackers come in. Their eyes are attuned and can see these tiny slight differences or discrepancies or marks that don't add up and use those to help follow the trail. I certainly don't have those abilities, and most of the time when I'm tracking, I'm not following each individual footprint. I'm using my gut feel as well as listening to alarm calls, listening to the bush, and following the general movement of that animal and almost trying to turn myself into a leopard and think, if I was a leopard, where would I go from here? So that's how I do it, and I guess how a lot of people actually do it. It's not following each individual footprint. There's very few people that can do that. And I guess the other bottom line is, Judith, is that if they do head into those areas, it becomes close to impossible to track them, and that's why sometimes our tracking efforts are fruitless. Even the best trackers in the country will not be able to find every single animal they track, and that's what makes it exciting out here, that it's not an easy job tracking animals, so that when you do get lucky and eventually find one, it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. I mentioned we're going to be heading to the hyena den site. Cecilia's interested to know if they haven't possibly changed den sites. That's why we haven't been having as much luck there. And no, not as far as we're aware. There are still a few adults and cubs spending time at the current den where we have been viewing them. So we don't think they have changed den sites. But again, what's important to remember is that it's not always active when we are there, and a lot of it is luck, so we can't assume that simply because we have been going there and haven't been getting lucky that they have moved off just yet. There have been one or two guides popping in as well when we may not be there, and they get there and the hyenas are there. By the time we get there, they've gone. So we're still confident it is the old den site, but it could be coming to time now that they would move. They've been spending, I'd say, over a month now, at least over a month, at the current den sites, and they are known to move from den to den in order to change the scenery, and also just from a hygiene perspective, it gets pretty dirty and disgusting down there, and if they move out, Mother Nature comes in with her housekeepers and cleans it up for them, and they can return a few months later to a clean den site. Oh, it is getting cold all of a sudden. So Jamie has yet to give up on relocating Karula. She's still there working hard at it. But it appears the Queen of Djuma has done a runner and disappeared. So don't hold your breath there, but there still is a chance Jamie is still in that area, hoping to get another visual of her. I think it could be possibly Jamie's first time she would have seen Karula. I'm not too sure. But the thought did cross my mind earlier. It was the first time. Awesome. So possibly not all of your first time, but maybe also some of the viewers' first time to see Karula. I saw her the first morning I arrived here at Djuma, and since then she's been pretty elusive, so I don't know if she didn't like me, but I heard all these wonderful stories about how often Karula gets seen at Djuma, but it hasn't really been the case since we've been here in November. We've seen her less and less over the months. I guess that's not necessarily because she's not around. We have often had her tracks, but she has been simply avoiding us. happy to hear that one of our viewers, Angela's still hard at work but watching Safari Live at the same time. I'm glad you have the skills to multitask. I certainly don't. And yes, Julia, you are correct. We have finally received new earpieces, which we are overjoyed with. They are very comfortable and I enjoy having it plugged into my head. So, good observation. You should note a dramatic improvement in the quality of the broadcast now that we have our new fancy earpieces. If not, we don't have any excuses, so send through positive feedback, please. Okay, folks, well, even though Jamie has yet to find Karula, she would like to give you an update on what she's doing and how her afternoon's coming along. And we'll still continue to the hyena den and hopefully have some good news for you shortly.
So guys, welcome back. And I'm afraid to say that I have not been able to relocate Karula since she disappeared off stalking into this block. So I waited for quite a while just listening for any signs of a hunt, and then I looped around to where I last saw her disappearing off. And we do have these Inyala, and these are the same Inyala that I started with first thing this afternoon when I did go walking in that drainage line just a little bit further to the east of my position now. So I'm back where I started, come full circle, but these guys are in the direction that Karula was looking in. So we've just stopped to give it a moment and to see what's going to happen around here. And James has kindly come out to help me try and relocate her. So while I've been looking through this block, and it is an interestingly thick block, James has just been looping around my position and looking for any tracks that might come out onto the road. I can actually hear him now looping through. So, for those of you who might have missed the beginning of the show and wondering what I'm talking about, we just had Karula in this block a little bit to the west of where we are now. And she did sort of go into full stalk mode and get very low to the ground and started moving off in the direction of where these Nyala are. And I haven't heard anything. She obviously didn't pop out near them because they didn't alarm call at any point. But we have just been driving around trying to relocate her. Unfortunately, we haven't had much luck, and it is an enormous block and very, very thick. So I might start making my way out of here. How I'm going to do that, I'm not entirely sure. Sorry, I just saw some movement out of the corner of my eye. But I think it is just another Inyala. Just saw a tail swish. He's just a flash. No, it's just another Inyala. Tucked away. You might not be able to see it through the bushes. So now we have a question. I don't know exactly how far into the block I am, or exactly where the closest road might be, or exactly how I'm going to get through this impenetrable thicket in front of me. So it could be highly entertaining as I struggle my way through. I haven't heard anything from James yet, so she is probably still in this block, but I can't really go crashing through without any general idea of which way she headed off in. and she was bobbing and weaving a lot through the bush, so I'm not too sure where she's gone, but I am going to make my way back out onto the road as soon as I can find out where the road is. Hello, Thorns. Oh. So, we're going to go for a bumpy adventure together as I try and squeeze Jigger out. Oh. We've lost our antenna again. And Wildebeest is having quite a tough time on the back. I keep driving him through thorn trees and he has to move branches and pull the antenna back up. So we should all applaud him for his wonderful work back there. Thank you. So while I'm driving through this thick block and avoiding cuts and scratches and bruises from all the branches, Lenny from Arizona would like to know what it is that I carry in my first aid kit. So it's a very small one and very basic. I've got my general disinfectants and a couple of nice compression bandages, nice strong elastic ones that can be used to treat snake bites if and when they should occur. But it is a very basic one, so nothing too major, a couple of painkillers, but it has to be light enough for me to carry because I walk with it when I walk with guests. So that is what is in so that is what is in my first aid kit. Sorry, I know that the noise is thoroughly enthralling. Come on, Karula, where did you go? Oh, nothing there. Goodness gracious, this is quite an intense block. And just while I'm scratching and scraping my way through, oh, I think I can see the road. How wonderful. Nearly out, and as I complete the last leg of this harrowing adventure through the bushes, Ben in Connecticut would like to know if I have ever seen a caracal. Hi Ben, welcome to the Sunset Safari. And in answer to your question, I have, not yet on the Sabi Sands, but I have encountered quite a few caracals in my time in a couple of different reserves. Always very, very exciting to see. Much, much rarer than seeing something like a leopard. We're nearly there. So I've probably seen about 10 or so caracals in my life, so not an enormous number, and I do still get very excited when I see them. Sorry, Viam. Hey, we made it. Unfortunately, still no sign of Karula, but I am going to just see if there's any tracks. I'm going to double check very, very carefully on this road and see if we can see if her tracks crossed. It's amazing how calm all of the animals are in this area, but I did notice that when she was moving into the wind. So her scent would have been disguised. And of course, as you know, leopards are such incredibly lithe and stealthy creatures. So now it's just a matter of seeing if I can see her tracks anywhere. And we have once again come full circle, and this is almost exactly the same spot where I stopped to follow those alarm calls earlier. As it turned out, my alarm calls were not in the right direction, but it is entertaining that we have ended up exactly where I started this afternoon's leopard search. Ooh. And the reason that I turned up left onto the road as I did was because although she was bobbing and weaving, generally if I had to describe her direction from where she started to where I lost her, it was in a mostly northerly direction. This kudu is pulling a very funny face. And I think it is because he's got a bone in his mouth. It's also, here you can see his tiny little horns. It's a very young male. But I think he's got a bone and he's just chewing on it. And that's very common. It's known as osteophagy. And a lot of the animals in this area will do it just to get a little bit of extra calcium. And there we can see he does have a bone in his mouth. So just supplementing those calcium levels. And I always find it hilarious to sit and watch them chew bones. It does look very odd. I'm going to take this opportunity while he keeps us entertained with his funny faces to just layer up a little bit. It has got very chilly now that the sun has disappeared. So guys, while I attempt to re-find or relocate Karula, I'm going to have to be checking the road pretty carefully, and I need a lot of concentration for that. So for now, I'm going to send you back to Scott, who's got another different kind of predator, and a very cute one at that, and I'll see you shortly.
Welcome back, and we're in luck. It's been one full week since we've seen this little cub, and it's grown up since I last saw it. I saw it over a week ago. Her mother's just curled up into a ball, all of a sudden fast asleep. She's got a very distinctive scar on her back. And look at how cute this is. They are such awesome animals, hyena. And you can't help but fall in love with them, especially when you see all different shapes and sizes now. Small, medium, and large. And thankfully this mother doesn't have to worry about any babysitting, because there's 3 older cubs that the smallest one can play with. And we all do think that it could be a future queen, that little black cub. We tend to agree that her mother is the most dominant. And we learnt just the other day that the mother of the oldest cub is the second most dominant. And the mother with the two twins is the least dominant out of the three mothers. Absolutely wonderful. I guess there's nothing to worry about, even though the older cubs are nibbling at it. They're tough little animals, hyena, and it knows its mother is right there, and if at any stage, like right now, the mother feels that the others are becoming too aggressive, she will make sure to come in and intervene. And she's trying to, it looks like, give a youngster a bath. Just trying to knock it over with the muzzle there in order to lick its stomach clean. But the baby doesn't want to have its bath yet. It wants to go and play with its cousins. Well, this little hyena cub will be a little ball of energy. It's getting fed with extremely nutritious milk. And hyenas have the most nutritious milk out of all the terrestrial carnivores. And it's important that it works that way, because it wouldn't suit their lifestyle to be able to take their cubs to kills or bring kills back to their dens. Unlike wild dog, who can regurgitate their kills, and unlike lion and leopard, who live a very different lifestyle and can afford to be very secretive for the leopard and hoist their kills into trees where their cubs can feed safely. Lions have the safety of the pride that can defend their cubs against anything that may attend a kill. But hyena don't have these abilities, and therefore have got extremely nutritious milk, because their cubs need to milk for very extended periods of time, up till over a year. Whereas other predators will stop drinking milk at around 3 months of age, or at least start getting weaned off then. And this highly, highly nutritious milk is what's powering this little fur ball, and will continue to power it for quite some time. Even the larger cubs that we can see here are being fed also. Majority of their food is milk that they get from their mothers. Andrew, look at there's one lying down on its back, and it's almost as if it's looking up at the moon rising. It's been looking up into the sky, the one that the little fur balls just jumped onto. And it was staring intently up towards the moon, I guess wondering what it was or what life would be like out there. Aren't we so lucky to be allowed an insight into these animals' lives? It really is so fortunate to be able to share all of this with you. And we're slowly getting to grips with the complex hierarchy that is involved with 3 weeks ago, and then it would only stay at the entrance to the burrows into this termite mound. Now this is the furthest I've ever seen it stretching away. So really great that it is coming a lot closer to the vehicles, and slowly we're getting to see it grow up and build confidence and we're going to continue to watch them just like these other three, hopefully for years to come. And if we do get to know the complex social hierarchy a bit better, because it is incredibly complex, the alpha females, beta females, how they interact with one another. All females born to the current alpha female will essentially be in line to be the next queen. So there's competition between sisters for that title, and we're only slowly beginning to piece together this puzzle at the moment. Very sorry to hear that some of you lost picture earlier. Sorry to hear that some of you lost picture earlier.
So guys, welcome back. And while you were having that amazing time with Scott and that incredible little hyena cub, I've been very stubbornly, sorry, I thought I heard something. I've been very stubbornly staying in the area where I lost Karula. So just to give you a rough idea of where I am, I looped around and came to the northern section of our boundary, and she would be somewhere off into the block on my left. And I've been just every now and again stopping and listening for any sign of her in the hope that maybe the alarm calls are coming through. Whilst VM and I were driving through, we did see lots and lots of general game, including those inyalas that I'm almost certain she was stalking earlier. So I have just tried to keep with her and just see where she's gone. I have looped around several times. In fact, the wildebeest told me it's probably the most times he has ever looped around that block, or this particular block. Still no luck, and I didn't see her tracks coming out, and I wasn't the only guide looking. So she is potentially somewhere still in there and just hiding from me. So not sure where she's gone, but I've been keeping an eye out since then. And it really is a truly, truly spectacular winter sky that we're seeing this evening. Really beautiful colors. And I've just been stopping to sit and listen. So I'm just going to take it a little bit further, see if maybe we can search around for her. It has been a truly exciting afternoon for me, and I know where I will be starting my search tomorrow. If we don't get lucky and we don't find her now, we don't have much time left, so I do want to just get moving, see if we can see something. But if we don't get lucky tonight, I'm definitely coming back here first thing tomorrow morning to see what will happen. So let's hit the road, take our chances. This is the general direction that she came in. Come on, Karula. I know that you are here somewhere. Wow, that skyline is absolutely spectacular. It is really, truly a stunning, stunning evening this evening. We can just see the silhouettes of the Drakensberg Mountains really actually showing nice and clearly through the trees. I think because it has been so windy over the past few days, it's just blown away some of that haze. And I wish I could put into words the feelings that I have when I look at a sunset like this. but maybe I don't have to. Maybe you all know exactly how I feel. But a really spectacular end to what's been an incredibly exciting afternoon for me. It was my first time seeing Karula, and I can see why she has captured so many hearts. Very graceful, beautiful animal. So even though we didn't manage to find her again, and we have run out of time, this is such a special view to end off a really special afternoon. And we've just got Venus looking over the side there. So guys, thank you for all joining me on an amazing, amazing sunset safari. I loved seeing Karula, and I'm so glad that I could share it with all of the viewers. And thank you to the wildebeest for all of his amazing camera work as we went crashing through the bushes. Thank you to Nikki and Kirsty and FC and Eugene and Alex. And join us tomorrow for the sunrise safari, where I will be straight back here first thing to follow up on Karula. Have a wonderful day, everyone.